Hello everyone, and welcome back to our second Women's Month webinar, the month where we have conversations that I believe is important for women, and we're starting the conversations and hope to well beyond August 2016 that we can add value to the women of South Africa out there. So today we're talking about trusts, wills, your legal structures, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later. I've invited my really dear friend Hanna Marie to join today because she's the person that really plays a really big role in my life, and in my structures, and in my estate, how we set it up. I've met Hanna, I think, about 6 years ago, when I went through a really messy divorce, and Hanna, in a straightforward, honest way, said to me, go sort out your life and come back to me and I will help you. And that's what I had to go and do. A few years later, we met up again, and sure as not, she did help me. She's really helping setting up and is a vital part of my team. And Hanna, it's really, really awesome to have you here and to share your knowledge with so many and more people, and be able, I hope you can help more people like how you've helped me. I just want to quickly introduce myself. Everybody knows I'm Hilda. I'm an entrepreneur. I do business in different continents. Just love business. I'm actually passionate about entrepreneurship. I'm passionate about success, my own, but also to see other people achieve, and especially to see successful women. I believe the world needs more successful women that's willing to stand up and make a difference, and that will make a massive impact on the planet. I am a philanthropist. I really help. I'm involved with Tech Attacks, and next week we will talk about philanthropy and giving back and why is that important. And I love to travel, experiences, and I do a lot of that every year. But I think my biggest role and my most important role is being the mother to my two children, 8 and 10 years old. And Hanna is also an integral part of making sure my kids will be okay one day when I can't speak for myself anymore. Hanna, I want to introduce Hanna to everyone. And Hanna is, I'm going to read her, why is this not working? I'm going to just, sorry, I just quickly want to see how we're moving. Sorry everyone, I just want to quickly get to the slide with Hanna. So Hanna is an amazing woman. She's currently head of Momentum Trust Limited. She has extensive experience in financial and specifically in the trust and fiduciary industries in South Africa, and is licensed by the Financial Services Board. Prior to joining Momentum, Hanna managed to corporate trustees, private companies, and is also successful financial services business. During her 28 years in financial services industry in South Africa, she was employed by major listed financial services companies, where she received various accolades for the services that she's rendered. Hanna serves on the board of a number of companies and charitable organizations. Hanna is furthermore a member of the Fiduciary Institute of South Africa, the Institute of Directors, and the member of Executive Committee of Society of Trust Estate Practitioners. Wow, this is a mouthful, Hanna. And but also I want to just add, on a personal level, Hanna is a single mother of 3 remarkable young men, and she really literally raised them by herself for most of their lives. And I think they are listening to their mom today, and you know, and I hope you do that with pride. Before we get, Hanna, I said welcome to you, but before we get to our discussion on trust, I just also want to say thank you to Wealth Migrate, who is our sponsors for this webinars on women. And Wealth Migrate is the first online global real estate company. They started off in Cape Town and now have offices Hong Kong, Australia, USA, America, and really help people to invest in hard currencies in America, Australia, and for people with an offshore global strategy. We found that there's not a lot of women investing in properties, let alone in global real estate. So what is admiring of the men of Wealth Migrate is how passionate they are to help empower women and to make sure that women are part of the conversation so we can make a difference to the world. So our conversation on women and wealth this week is really the fiduciary aspects, the structures, and all that boring stuff that none of us creators of businesses and running of businesses and all of us in the process of creating success and making money really often think about, especially when we are women. We somehow always think there's a man that's going to do it for us, or I just find very few women are part of the conversation on structures and on their trust. And that's why I think we should really just have this conversation with women. If that's one bit that you can learn, that might be the bit that you need. If we look at how the world is today for women are getting married a lot later in life. The divorce rate is, I think, 70% at the moment. So the fact that you're getting married later, the fact that you stand a 70% chance of then getting divorced, and if you're part of the 30% that stays married, chances are your husband might pass or die before you. So at some point of a woman's life, you need to know and you need to be empowered with the knowledge of how to run my life and how to run my life on a structural point of view. The world today is a very different place for women. And there's so many opportunities. Women at the moment can achieve more. There's literally no ceilings for what women can achieve. And the opportunities are everywhere. So before we get into the conversation with Hanna on structures, I think I want to just share my blueprint that I've created on how to live the best life. And I've done it over the years with my experience. So this is, if your life is made up on three aspects. One is the way we create our wealth. And I know wealth is not necessarily just money, but for this conversation, we're going to talk about wealth as money, because for whatever you want to do or achieve in life, you need to have a certain level of money or wealth. Wealth creation is when you work for your money. It's when you work in a company, your own business, or a salary to start making your own money. The wealth management portion is if you get to a phase in your life where you've made enough money, then that money should be working for you. Your investments, the way you create passive income, that should then be starting to work for you, because you don't want to have a life where you continually have to work for your money. And then this is the structures in which you either create your money or manage your money. I find, in my experience, most people have these three circles all over the show and not integrated or not even talking to each other. The accountant's doing his thing, the lawyer's doing his thing, the wealth manager, the insurance guy, and very few people have a structure where these people are part of their structure or part of their conversation. And I know you can chip in here if you disagree or what you find, but I just talk about my experience. So what I find is, if you define what your best life looks like, what do I want to do in my life, what do I want to achieve, you just put that down, and then you have the team that make that happen. So how you make money, how you create other revenue streams, and what structures looks like should all be talking to each other, and that middle of where all of these circles overlap sits your best life. So I believe, and I have a whole team that help me with my structure, is that your life should depend on how you want to live your life, and how you want to create in your life should dictate how you're going to make your money and how you're going to keep your money, and how the structure should look like, and not the other way around. Whereas 90% of our population lives the type of life their money allows them to. And I want to really turn that concept onto its head and saying, if you have the right structures, if you have the right way that is in line with your best life to make your money, and you have the right team that manage that money, you will ultimately have your best life and have a free life. And this is where Hanna comes in, because she's an integral part of my wealth structure. And we're going to just share the differences that people, between all the structures and your opportunities, and then how people, and then, you know, how we can help people. If anybody wants to ask questions, please post your questions and we will handle those questions throughout the conversation. So Hanna, this is sometimes what I feel when I see all of these paperwork and the documents we have to deal with and all the things that you guys are doing. You obviously are a really organized person and love making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So do you want to just quickly say hello to the audience, tell them about yourself quickly? I know I've done an intro, and continue with the discussion.
Hello, thank you very much. Hello everybody. Hilda, I think just to start off, I would just like to put on a few house rules. This discussion is, I operate from a South African perspective, and it will be about the South African environment. If there anybody out there listening who need assistance or to have queries on the international structure, they're welcome to contact me, and I'm sure we will have the contact details at the end of this discussion. And then I'm not here to convince anybody that men or women should structure. I'm in favor of women do their own financial planning and structuring.
Thank you. And we'll get to the women's role and what your experiences are later. But I think if you can just tell us, what is a trust? What's the purpose of a trust? You know, are they different? Just tell us the background about a trust, the different types of trusts. How many trusts should you need? Because I know some people have like 8, 10 trusts. Do you really need that many? And who should be able to, or who should consider a trust?
Okay, yeah, a trust is an entity that's used in the common law jurisdictions and a trust is there to hold the assets, like shares in a business. The main thing is that you need to separate the assets between you as an individual and the assets of a trust. So for the person who's not ready to hand over the control of the assets, a trust is not for that person. You need to be able to separate the assets from yourself. It's not assets in your own estate. So it's a legal entity and can therefore protect the assets. So you get different types of trusts.
Explain to us what do you mean by if someone isn't ready to part with their assets? What do you mean by that?
When an asset is in your own personal capacity, you can do so as you feel with the asset. The moment it's an asset of a trust, it's not your personal asset. You're handing control over to the trustees who will manage the asset and protect the assets of the trust for the benefit of the beneficiaries. In other words, there's a separation between yourself and that of the assets of the trust. It's not yours. You can't act on the assets as though it is your own assets.
Okay. So who should, is a trust part of your estate planning? Is it, who should have a trust? What is the parts of a trust? And give us the terminology so that we're all just on one page what all the lingo of trusts are.
Hilda, if I can go one step back on handing over assets, when you're dealing with assets in your personal capacity, you can make your wishes clear in a will. Every person listening, every person out there should need a will where you stipulate your wishes on what should happen to those assets on death. A trust is something that you can, an entity that you can set up while you're alive. And then you will have assets in a trust like the shares in a business, or it can be property. And the parties to a trust will be the founder, the person that set up the trust. Then you've got the trustees. Those are the people that have got a fiduciary duty that will manage the assets in the trust. And then you've got the beneficiaries. A trust is set up for the benefit of the beneficiaries. So the founder will state to the trustees who he wishes to be the beneficiaries. And then there will be a trust deed, which is you can call it the constitution. It's the instrument, it's the document that gives a guideline to the trustees to give their duties and responsibilities.
Okay. And is that sort of what everybody needs to know? The other terminologies so that we have the trust deed, we have trustees, we have beneficiaries, and you have the founder of the trust. Yeah.
Yes.
What type of trustee?
To add to that, one of the parties that's added is always your accounting officer. A trust it's an entity. You need to appoint accounting officers. A trust in South Africa doesn't need to be audited unless the trustees wish for it to be audited. So we always need an accounting officer as well.
So can anybody be a trustee? What types of trustees do we need?
A trustee, well, to start off, a trustee needs to be older than 18 years old. And the fiduciary duty or fiduciary mean to trust, it's your highest standard of care. The trustee person who take up the responsibility of a trustee must be ready and must be able to take up that responsibility. In South Africa, the bottom line is if you qualify to be a director of a company, you qualify to be a trustee. But be ready for that responsibility.
What is the responsibility?
You
You
need
say
to
be
act,
ready for responsibility. What do you mean?
you need to act in good faith. You need to act in the best interest of the beneficiaries, and you need to act with care and diligence.
So
Need
if someone now wants to set up a trust, who should they have as trustees and who can be beneficiaries?
If we start at the bottom, who can be beneficiaries? There will be an objective. The founder will set up a trust with a specific purpose or objective. And then beneficiaries will be appointed for that purpose or for that objective. To choose your trustee, you need to apply your mind. You need to have people around the table that can act in care for those beneficiaries. If the founder, we wish to be a trustee as well, because the founder can be a trustee, the founder can be founder, trustee, and beneficiary. If that person is not there anymore, passed away or incapacitated, the founder wants the trustees that he nominated to act on the trust, on the assets of the trust, as though he is still alive. So choose your trustees carefully. Apply your mind. See who you trust. Then you always need an independent trustee. It's not law in South Africa, but it's good practice. Independent trustee is somebody that is not related to the beneficiaries that can normally take the responsibility of the compliance of the trust.
And who typically is an independent trustee?
They are professional. We act as professional trustees. There are companies that's approved with the Master of the High Court to act as independent trustee, or where the company itself is registered with the Master to act as independent trustee. And you get professionals out there that will be willing to act as professional trustee. But again, be careful. Make sure that person is ready to take that responsibility. To be a trustee is a huge responsibility. And your independent trustee will ultimately take the responsibility for the administration and for the compliance of the trust.
Okay. We're going to get a little bit on the administration and compliance a little bit later. I just want to know who drafts trust. If I want to go to a trust, can I just do my own trust, or what is the process of starting or creating a trust?
Yeah, sure, you can draft your own trust. I think it's a deed is available online, but be careful. It's a legal document. It needs to be. I will advise that you rather go to professionals. A lot of law firms specialize in doing trust as well. You get trust companies, as I said. Rather speak to a professional, so the professional can understand what is the purpose. Why are you setting up a trust? What is the ultimate that you want to achieve? What must be the succession? Why are you setting it up? And they will draft the deed according to that. And make sure the stipulations, it's according to law. That's the bottom line. You need to draft the deed according to law.
Okay, so it's a legal document. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So just before we get to the legal side of a trust, you've just mentioned earlier on about the will and testament versus trust. So for someone, at least the starting point, what I heard is you don't need a trust, but you have to have at least a will.
A will, definitely. Yes, that's my belief.
And why is that important?
The will.
Yeah.
Because you want your assets on death, you want to make sure that your assets ended up in the hands of the beneficiaries that you wish it to end up with. And not that it is interstate where you go, at the end there will be a certain legal line that's followed on who will inherit and who will not. You want to make sure, so for your wishes to be fulfilled, you need to put it in a document, and that is the will.
Okay.
The trust is not there to look after your personal assets, and that's where the line is. The will look after your personal assets. A trust will look after the assets. The trustees will look after the assets inside the trust that belong to the trust.
Okay, that's interesting. So to have a will, do I have to wait till I'm married? And then do a will with my husband, or what do you suggest people to do?
No, especially when you do have assets. If you're young, you just started to work, and you buy your first property. If something happens to you, who do you want to inherit the property? What must happen to the property? All my kids do have wills. They're older than 18. They do have wills to stipulate what must happen to their asset. Because people forget to change their wills. People forget to update their wills. So they will set up a will and then totally forget about it. Now you set up a will while you went to the army, or when you just start studying, you buy your first property and you draft a will, and it's still the boyfriend or the girlfriend, and you totally forget about it. Don't wait until you get married. Draft your will. Even if you want to draft it now before you've got the assets. But in your mind you think, if something happens to me, I want my mom or my father or my siblings to inherit my asset. You can still do so. You don't have to wait for the first asset that you own. You can do it now.
What happens if I don't have a will? What will happen to the assets?
Well, in South Africa, we do have an interstate line. It's a legal line that will be followed. And if people are not sure what will happen and what if I don't have a will, they can always contact me and we can have a discussion on the how and the why. That needs to be followed.
Okay.
Sorry, Hilda, if I can interrupt you there. Just for people to know as well, a will is also a legal document. It needs to be set up correctly. It needs to be signed correctly. If you do amendments to the will, it needs to be done in a legal, correct way. And it's not always just good enough to have a legally drafted document. It must be executable. It must be able to fulfill your wishes. So people are welcome to contact me.
Okay, and can you change a will? How often can you change a will, or how often should you change a will if you can?
From my side, I prefer if people will review their wills on an annual basis at least. And yes, you can change a will anytime because your circumstances change. So the moment there's a life event, marriage, child, divorce, inheritance, retire, change your will. But review it on an annual basis. Make yourself a note or speak to your advisor to review it on an annual basis to make sure it is what you wish for your assets to be distributed to.
And I just want to add to that, because you and I had the conversation, is where's the original will and who's keeping it, and what is your original will? So I just want to, and I would like your input on this, because I've made sure everybody knows, my accountant, my trustees, my wealth advisors know where my copy of my original will is, and upon anything happened to me, the team can go find it. So there's no one has to wonder, well, is the
Yes.
1995 will the last one, or is it the 2016 will that's the last one? So I think people should also just know or let other people, if you do draft even your own will or write it up, someone should know where you keep it. Am I right?
100% correct. The master estate can't be administered if you can't submit the last original signed will to the master. And as you know, we've got it as part of our agenda at trustee meetings, where we just ask the trustee, especially the founder, do you know when last did you do your will? When last did you review your will? Do you know where your last signed will is? And then what we do with our clients is just to make a note on the file. Should any family member contact us? And I will advise that to clients as well, or to the people listening. Make sure somebody knows where that file is. It might be that the family is driving together, but who is out there? Like you said, your accountant, your trustee. Somebody needs to know where they can go and look for the file where the will is. That is crucial. That's so important.
And I think this is something, like you say, you draft a will 15 years ago and you don't even think about it again, and you don't even know, do I have the last version or copy? Who's got the copy of the last version? So I think that is a very important tip for anyone listening, is to make sure your ducks in a row on that side. I've got a question here from someone, Hanna, that says, what can one expect to be charged by a company or individual when acting as an independent trustee? So now that I know, it's like how long is a piece of string, but maybe can you, is there an opinion,
Yes.
can you feedback?
There is no, in South Africa, and I think worldwide, there is no standard on a fee for independent trustee. That is the clients, the people need to do their homework. Some trustees charge a fixed fee on the activities and on the duties that they need to be fulfilled. You get other trustees that will charge a percentage of the assets in the trust. So go out there, do your homework, make sure, and as well, the fee, what does the fee include? It's not only to say the trustee will charge X, Y, Z, but what is included in that fee? Make sure your independent trustee has got PI cover, a professional indemnity cover, which is a huge fee in South Africa because you take responsibility of other people's assets. So make sure what is included in that fee. But there's no final answer to that.
Is this fee negotiable? Is it something that you can or should negotiate, or do you, and shop around? Should you shop around? How do you, what is the guidelines to know, especially now, because now we have family and we're all trustees and beneficiaries, but we need to obviously have an independent person that could mediate family feuds. And I mean, you guys have seen, I hear all your stories constantly on their status, a couple of 100 million, and the kids are all fighting and the beneficiaries are fighting. How do you shop around, or what should you look at for your independent trustees that will mediate, or does an independent trustee mediate between the family to say, well, the person who started the trust, this was what his intentions were, so this is how you're going to behave inside this framework.
This is what question, and you ask a lot in one question. So normally your trust deed, and again, people must understand, if you go back to the independent trustee, make sure the people have got, or if you consider appointing independent trustee, they've got the knowledge and they've got the experience on trust and trustees. Every trustee should know what the trust deed is about. Every trustee has got a fiduciary duty and should read the trust deed. So most trustees, all trustees are not the same, should have room and should have a clause for arbitration, for mediation. It's not necessarily the independent trustee's duty or responsibility, but it can be. So it depends what the deed is saying on that. Just to go back to the first part of your long question, is on the fees. Yes, do your homework. Negotiate with them. Ask them. Find out exactly, because the fees should not absorb it. You can't use all your assets just to pay fees. So make sure, what is the fee of the accounting officer? Make sure what is the fee of your independent trustee, because it can't be the same person. you're either the independent trustee or the accounting officer, but that's not the same person. So it's different cost. So when a person is setting up a trust, make sure you know what the cost is and make sure it's viable.
Okay, thank you. Then, I just want to again talk about currently, and I know there's highly confidential that you are inside, and I don't expect you to share everything, but laws are changing, things are moving, what are the absolute right now no-nos of a trust that everybody has to be extremely careful? What do you see out there with trusts not being run properly? Give us some examples of what can happen when, of things that can go wrong in a trust.
Yeah. On a worldwide scale, Hilda, trusts are not the flavor of the month. And the reason for that is it is abused or was abused, is still abused. And I say again, this is a worldwide thing. So there are a lot of opinions, there are a lot of unpleasant, if I can call it unpleasant, comments floating around. I think the bottom line is that people are confused and they see the assets of the trust as though it is their own. And they act on it as it is their own. If this is why you've got a trust, and if you act on the trust asset as though it's your own, and you don't like somebody else to tell you how and what to do it, get out. Or get somebody to help you to get it compliant. I think that is the biggest no-no, is that people take control of their own assets. There are basically only two questions. Is how did the assets get into the trust? And then how is your trust administered? For those two aspects, you need a board of trustees.
Yeah. Those are the two.
And that's what I always go on trustee meetings as well. It's those two aspects. Because those will lead you to non-compliance. And those two aspects will lead you to a court case where the corporate veil is lifted. Now, corporate veil just lifted is where you act, if it can find that you act on those assets as though it is your own. The corporate veil can be lifted, and the assets will form then part of your own personal estate for creditors. And it's actually why you set up a trust, to protect it. But if you deal it in the wrong way, or your trustees doesn't know how to act on the assets, or act it in the wrong way, the corporate veil can be lifted. The bottom line on the no-no, is for no individual to have control over the assets of a trust. I think that's the simple line everybody should remember.
Yeah, and it's also, I guess, for your own protection to have someone else or have some structure that you don't make stupid decisions or do stuff with your own assets. You have some level of protection between the world out there and the assets that you've acquired over your lifetime.
And that's why we'll set it first, Hilda, is because you want the assets to be protected. If we go back to the very first question, why trust? It's for the assets to be protected. To protect the assets when you're going insolvent. For succession planning, you've got assets, you work very hard for your assets, and you want your kids to benefit by it, or your legal descendants to benefit by it. And that's why you use a trust, is for succession planning, whether you're there or whether you're not there. And that's, again, going back to choosing your trustees, to choose them carefully. So the trustees understand your circumstances, understand when you're not there, or you're there but you're incapacitated, how to act on those assets, again, for the best interest of the beneficiaries, of which you might be one. You're just incapacitated.
So we also know, and I know it also could be a contentious topic where people hide their assets in trust and then get divorced, and I'm sure you've got some interesting stories. So how does that work? If can people still hide assets and then not share it, or that this falls outside of their personal estate, and how does it work in a divorce and now your stuff's in an asset, in a trust, I mean?
It's actually a complicated question, so I'm gonna answer to you very much on the surface because it depends a lot on the circumstances, on how it was set up, what was the agreement before the time. You go back to the line, Hilda. If there's a divorce case, and if you look at the court cases today where it's against a trust, where the one party will say, sorry, I've got no assets. It's all in a trust, and my estate is empty. I've got zero to give to you. I can tell you now that the other party will go to court to see who has got control over those assets. So that's one part of your question. The other part of the question, can you still hide? I think those days worldwide is over. We've got the CRS, Common Reporting Standards, that's coming in. If I can use the word hide, you can run, but you can't hide. If you do it in the wrong way, it will be lifted. If you do it in a correct way and somebody is attacking it, it's managed in a correct way. I don't say they can't lift it, but I think the chances are slimmer that it can be. But the idea of a trust is not to hide. The idea of a trust is not to be secretive. That's not the idea. Then you do it, and your intentions is then wrong. Then you do it for the wrong reasons.
Okay. I just want to remind listeners, if anybody wants to ask Hanna questions, to please just post your questions so that we can, that she can answer it while you've got her on the line. So, Hanna, just to move on, we've seen the financial world really as extremely male-dominated, a male-dominated environment where most men are responsible or is setting up the structures for their businesses and their trust. Do you see a change over, or that there's more women taking ownership of their own financial future and their own structures, or not really?
It's still a male-dominated world out there, and we find that men are taking the decisions. Women are reluctant to do that, and I think the reason is because they don't know where to start. Who do you contact? Where do you start? Can I do it? Am I too small? I don't have enough knowledge. And that's why it's important to get professionals, to ask people around. Is it the right time? Can I do it? Or go and sort yourself out and then come back. But I'm here, I'm waiting for it. I will help you once you sort it out. So I do see women taking charge or trying to do that more and more. And I really enjoy it. I really like it, and I will really assist them because I think it's the way forward. We also get women that say, I'm married, my husband is taking control. Tomorrow something happens to the husband or to the marriage, and they don't know where to start. They don't know how to pay water and electricity. If the car needs to go in for a service, they don't know. And I've got a message in there for women. Get involved. Just understand. Find out who do I pay, how do I pay water and electricity, who do I contact. You won't know everything. None of us, you, Hilda as well, don't know everything. But there's always professional. Find out, speak to people.
So last week when I spoke to Nadine Todd, we sort of said, look at the knowledge men have. If you want to empower, because these empowerment, the conversations about business and money and wealth is not typically what women grew up with, what women have. Yet a lot of men has those conversations. So don't be shy. Go ask someone. Men really love teaching people and love showing what they know. And you must just find someone and see how men do it, how men network, how men set up their businesses and their lives. Learn from that, and then we can do it ourselves. So we mustn't be shy or feel stupid when we do that. At some point, all of us didn't know something. We just had to go and ask someone, and there's so much information available at the moment. You just have to go and find and ask for someone. And I've got a question here that and I can't see who asked me, is if there's an existing deed, can you assist to review the content of the deed and make sure the wording is correct and that their trust is compliant? Is that something, a service that your organization would offer?
Absolutely. That is called a legal audit. Now, everybody knows financial audit or financials, that's well known. But then you get a legal audit. A legal audit is where we, with the team, professional team, go through the deed, literally paragraph by paragraph. Then we look at case law. Case law means you've got your existing court cases, and we look at the Trust Property Act. And we make sure that the deed is speaking to, and then we will give you a report. And we will say these are the paragraphs, or these are our concerns, and then it's up to the individual, where you then can either do amendments or you can do a replacement deed. But again, Hilda, we need to look at the deed first to see if it's permissible. We are guided by
what you've done, what you continue doing also with my trust, is to make sure the minute the law change, are we still in line with the law? Are we still, you know, is everything still speaking to the laws? And you know, mentioned to me that there's so many laws changing that we don't even know about as a man in the street, and also there's laws that's being talked about that's going to change, and unless you have someone that's constantly working on what's the new house on top of it, so it's something you know that I know you and I do all the time, is to make sure that the trusts are still legal, the documents are still according to the intention we have. So you can just have people. Sorry.
No, I want to go back to you on the independent trustee. Is that on your question on who should I choose for the independent trustee? Is that whoever you choose should be the person that's got a focus on it, because you want to trust that person to stay on top of it, to go back to you and say, Hilda, XYZ has changed, or Hilda, brand new court case, we are concerned about XYZ. This is what we do. This is what we focus on. It's not a part-time job that we're doing. So people out there, choose your independent trustee with care. Apply your mind, do your homework, and then appoint that person.
Okay. I've got another question here. Does one have to have separate trust for SA assets and offshore assets? I know I can answer it, but do you want you answer it?
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, I thought there was something to the more to the question. Yes, you definitely have to have more than one trust. A South African trust, by law, cannot hold offshore assets and cannot make offshore payments because of exchange control. So for your offshore assets, you will have your offshore trust. And if you've got assets in your personal capacity offshore, you will have an offshore will. And then you will have your trust for your local assets that you want to put into a trust, and a will for your local personal assets. So it's different trusts.
And again, you can advise people if they contact you on setting up their offshore structure, and and it's not. And I think what people must understand, it's not a blanket copy paste solution. It all depends on your life, the amount of money, what you invest in, and your team should create the structures that's right for you. Just because something works for you or for you doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else, because we are so different.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So I think you will advise if anybody wants to look at the structure. You can advise on bringing people in that can set up the proper structure for the person's needs.
Absolutely, yes, we will do. People are welcome to contact me.
I've got a question, and I'm not sure, this is probably not for this, because it's more an accounting question on the tax implications of a trust. I'm not sure what exactly the tax implications, but do you want to just quickly give a brief answer on that?
What do you mean by tax implications?
The question is, are there tax implications? So it's probably, there's a trust-based tax. Is it, do you run financials? How do you manage a trust on the tax, from a tax point of view?
Okay. My point of view, you don't set up a trust for, not locally, not for tax purposes. If that is your view, your intention, you're on the wrong road. Don't do it, because tax change here offshore internationally from a day-to-day basis. Trust by law in South Africa, you need to have annual financial statements every year that needs to be submitted So people often say, but I've got a dormant trust. What is your definition of a dormant trust? Because if it holds assets or a shares in a company, it's definitely, or just a property, it's not dormant. But even if there's no asset, you need to submit annual financial statements, even if it says 0, 1, but please submit it. Tax consequences of trust, it's a different discussion. And that is better to have it as a one-on-one to understand what the question of the person is, what do they mean, what is the situation of the trust, is it on how to get the assets into the trust, is it a matter of distribution to the beneficiaries, get the assets out, what is the question of the individual. Again, people are welcome to contact me on that. Okay. And I just want to say that we work with professionals on that side, tax professionals as well. So if it's complicated,
I would imagine how, depending on how complicated your estate is or your structures is, who the professionals are that you're going to bring in to advise and help.
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
I've got a question here, Hanna, just to ask, does the founder have to be a natural person?
No, not necessary. No, it can be a corporate as well.
Okay. So it could be any other legal entity?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. In your experience, people that's built wealth in South Africa, how do they, is trust the only way they protect their wealth, or what, how do they protect their wealth?
Look, there are a myriad of options available, Hilda. Trust is only one vehicle that they can use, or one instrument that they can use. Again, it's to sit with the individual to understand what is their circumstance, what is their intention at that day. Remember, it can change tomorrow. But what is your intention now? Why are you structured? What is in your mind? How do you see the way forward? So there are many options available to structure.
Okay, and again, if I can think back to my 3 circles, depending on what your life, what you want your life to be, what your definition of your best life is. If you come and say, I want freedom, I want this, I want to do that, I've got so many children, it needs to be taken care of, and all of that will then be taken into consideration for creating the trust, for protecting the money, the assets, so that people then can have the freedom of their best life.
Absolutely. And again, depends on the dynamic of the family. I often get people contact me to say, this is our situation, but I've got a child that can't look, he's handicapped. How do I provide for him now, not only in my will, but what provision can I make now to make sure he's looked after, that person is looked after? Or people come to me and say, I've got a child who can't manage his own finance. I don't trust him due to circumstances, to trust, oh, he's got a problem. So we need to look at that, we need to listen to them, and then structure accordingly. But there are solutions for everybody.
Okay. I've got another question from the same person that asks, the beneficiaries of a trust, can that only be natural persons?
No, doesn't have to be only natural persons. Depends on the deed. If the founder set up the trust and say that in the deed it should be only natural persons and it can never be changed, then that is how it will be. But if that is a general question from the listener, then in general, no, doesn't have to.
So I think that is why it's so important for people that has any of these questions that's not sure what their trust deed says, to possibly look at getting someone in to have a review of their trust to see, here's the clauses that that we're concerned about, and here's laws that have changed, and we might have to review that. And it's a blanket. You can't give the same answer. No. You can't give a general answer. Depends on what the best life for that person would look like.
And what's yours? Yeah, what's working for you might not work for the next person as well. And your question earlier on, can you draft your deed yourself? Yes, you can. But these are the dangers.
Yeah.
Make sure you draft it correctly.
Yeah. So have you seen that there's families in South Africa who hasn't necessarily set up their financial structures, and then say the someone dies in the family or whatever, what's the implications? What can then happen? What can happen when things go wrong? Because obviously when everybody's alive and everybody's making money and creating money and making the decisions, it's hunky-dory. But what if the breadwinner or the person that's really the most dominant in that structure of making money falls away and there's no structures? What then happens? What in your experience do you typically see? How
Normally,
can you then correct things after the effect, or is it really a big problem?
normally it's chaos, and I don't want to say it can't be fixed, but certain things you can never turn the clock back. That's gone. So then we need to we look at the circumstances now and see what is the best. And again, Hilda, that's where your professional team is coming in. To speak to professionals, to find out what is the correct way of assisting and managing the assets or distribute the assets or structure the wealth then. The best way is to get a professional team online there. But I don't want to say, don't say it's too late. Rather try and do something.
Mm.
But please, if you can do it while you're still alive and while you know what you want to do. Sorry, Hilda, just quickly on a world topic. We, every now and when we still sit with, when we ask the question in the trustee meeting about the will, then they look at me and they say, you know what, I only got my army will. And then they, in their 50s, they've got families. So please structure it while you're alive and while you know what you want to do. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to move on. So I think everybody now understands the importance of trust, why they should look at it, the importance of wills. They can contact you. So just to get to you as a person, a business person, a corporate person, there's some questions that I was asked to ask you, or that people would want to know about you. And obviously with Women's Month, getting different women's opinions and introspectives of how they do their lives. So for you as a successful woman, in a financial world, male dominated, how do you do it? How do you find, I'm an entrepreneur and I pretty much, I don't, I'm unemployable in corporate because I can't conform to all the the corporate rules and plays. How do you do? How do you do all of it? And what do you think is significant for you in a female leadership role?
Well, I think the biggest problem with women today is self-doubt. Women don't believe they can do it. If your question is women in corporate, I think if women are on a stable side, they will acknowledge and say it is difficult because it's still a men's world out there. But more and more women are moving in there. Men and women speak different languages. They've got different perspective. But I believe there's value in the dynamic that women are bringing to the table. And I want to encourage women, get over your self-doubt. Pull up your socks. Say to yourself in the mirror, I can do it. Get out there and just do it.
Why do you think women have self-doubt? Or what are they doubting if they doubt themselves? Their capabilities?
I think so. Because it used to, and that's generalizing now, we grew up in a men-dominating world, and then we think, they're going to look at me and they might think I'm stupid or I can't do it. You can. Just go out and do it.
Don't you think the world's changing? That men is changing, the men of the world's changing, that they want to embrace women in their organizations?
I found it, yes, they want to do. And it's always said, when women meet to say, when you walk into that board meeting, just make sure you know what you want to say and why you want to say it. It's like they expect you to do so. Where women will say, but men are excused. It might be, but be part of it. Take your seat, say what you need to say. Don't throw tantrums. Yes, men do throw tantrums as well. But it's not our place at the moment to throw tantrums. But yes, more and more women, and women do take a stand. Yes, it's awesome.
Okay, that's wonderful. Then, next question for you. Have you got examples of, have you made bad decisions And have you made good decisions? And what were they, and how did you get over them? I don't talk about my bad decisions.
We all make
I did,
bad decisions. We all make bad decisions, and I'm definitely not going to give you examples of that now. But yes, Hilda, I think that the important is bad decisions is when I acted too quickly, make hasty decisions. The best decisions was for me, and that's what I want to say to, I often say to children as well. In fact, I said it to my younger son yesterday, listen to your gut feeling. It will never let you down. The decisions I've taken where I didn't listen to my gut feeling went south, where I listened to my gut feeling, although you think I actually want to go in a different direction, gut feeling will never let you down. And that's what I will say to everybody out there. We all make, I don't know if you want to call it wrong decisions, but when you look back, you think, I should have done the opposite. You didn't. But get over it and move on.
Yeah, I find a lot of people sit there and ponder and and then they're too scared to do anything else in the future, fearing that they make another bad decision. Yeah, so just get on, move on. Yeah.
Yes. And you can't sit there and not do anything because you're scared you're making a wrong decision. Everybody's looking at Hilda and say she's successful, everything she touched turns to gold. But surely there were decisions Hilda took as well that you think I could have done it differently, or why didn't I do it? Don't go there. You didn't do it then. Never.
Hanna, is there any, the job that you're doing now, was this your dream job as a child? Was that what you thought you were going to do one day?
I think when I was 18, or when you're in matric, I think, no, I didn't even know what a trustee or professional trustee is. And it was definitely not something my parents advised me to do. I think you will agree with me, Hilda, there were a few options. Teaching, nurse, or maybe like you, a pharmacist, because it's safe, you can have your babies, you will be home by 4 o'clock. So I think for my parents, my dream job would have been to be a teacher as well. But it was not my dream job. I couldn't put a word to it. And somebody actually asked me when I wanted to enroll at a university, if you close your eyes, what is the picture you see? And I want to sit around a table with men, because then men were in business. I wanted to sit around there. I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to give guidance. So if I look back at that picture, that's exactly what I do now, is to interact with people and to give guidance and to work with the people. I love it. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. So, who inspires you? We all need to have those role models. So who inspires you?
Hilda, J.K. Rowling, she wrote the Harry Potter books. But if you read about her, she was in a marriage that failed. She was in extreme poverty. She was sitting in a public library writing her books, but she was determined to do what she wants to do to achieve her goals. And today she's a pound-billionaire. To me, that's almost every aspect, because we all get hit by unpredictable, sometimes cruel events. And she just worked through, she got over it. She didn't feel sorry for, maybe she did. Maybe she did feel, but she just moved on, and she just did it. Awesome.
So to go on to that, what do you think the generations after us, we know what our generation, what we have to face, what do you reckon they will face?
I think our children might have a bit of, the girls, might have a bit of self-doubt as well, although I think it's moving out a little bit, but they might still have it. I want them to get over it as well. Then self-realization. Get what you believe you can achieve. Know what you want and go for it. And then I want to say to all women out there, come on, if this is your dream, get up. Even if your dream or your goal is just to get hold of your financial situation, or to be involved, to understand what your husband or your partner is doing, Come on, get up, do it, go for it, and get involved. Women needs to get involved. Nobody's going to do for it. It's not a come to us. We need to be there, and we need to take part, and we need to be part of it.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I've just got another question, just that we need to get back to trust before we go on. The person asked if the accounting company who's doing the financials of the trust can they also act as the independent trustees? They're not really independent.
No. You can, well, that is not good practice, Hilda. Who are you? Are you the independent trustee or are you the accounting officer? The conservative view or best practice view will be with these attorneys will between the accounting officer and the independent trustee, because the trustees need to oversee the financials when it was done, and vice versa. The accounting officer needs to look at the administration that's coming in and out, not to manage the administration, but on the flow of funds, etc. So best practice will be that it cannot be the same person.
Thank you. I'm just gonna, so I think we're running out of time. We're already over time, and we were concerned that we might not have enough to talk about. So I just want to close off with, again, my 3 tips or my 5 things for a successful life. Again, you can only understand what you want to achieve in your life and your definition. You need to understand the clarity of that definition of your success so that your team understands clearly what it is that you want to achieve, and that they can best advise, help you creating your wealth creation circle, your wealth management circle, as well as your structure circle. Stop making excuses. I've spoken about this again for those that were in last week. The stories we tell ourselves are the stories that hold us back to what we can achieve. Find your purpose. Why are we doing? And your purpose is not the goals that you set yourself. The purpose is really, what are the things that I'm here for on the planet? Gratitude. If you can't be grateful for the small things in life, you will never be able to be grateful for the big things. And then give back. If you were the lucky one of the 3% or 2% or 1% of people on this planet that got special talents and was successful, give back. So those are my 5 things. Hanna, your last 5 things from you. What is your, I just want to get to your slide. What is your, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I want people to be content. I want people to be happy and be peaceful on who they are inside themselves. Be at peace with yourself. Then what I just said, move on. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Move on. You can't change the past. Just move on. Then having a positive attitude or just a great attitude. Because when you meet people, that's what people see. If you don't drag people, don't get the people feel you're taking their energy. Give energy back to people. It will come back to you then as well. And then always keep trying. If you tried something and it's not working or it didn't work, don't stop. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Keep on trying. Focus, keep on trying, and then celebrate success. Celebrate the people around your success. Celebrate your own success, but celebrate success.
Thank you. That's really inspiring. So there's a question for people that wanted to have your contact details. Here's Hanna's contact details. Hanna.Marais@Momentum. Just you can write that down. We will also share the link. So when you get the link, then you will also be able to get her details. And Hanna, I'm glad if you can help people that's been listening in with them and make a difference to them if they contact you. Yeah, and then thank you very much from me. I really appreciate you joining me today. Awesome to do this with you. And thank you again for sharing and for helping, being part of the sharing and for wanting to help other women taking control over their lives and their wealth creation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. It was really a privilege. And the people out there, I will assist with pleasure.
Thank you.